Hello again and welcome to another edition of Practica Tango Tips. In our last video, I ended it with how we can take longer steps without hurting our back. In this week's video, I'll be talking about how we inadvertently take smaller steps and what we can do to avoid taking smaller steps than what we intend to. The first three issues have to do with how we walk. What it is we may be doing in our walk or not doing that is causing us to take smaller steps. Another issue has to do with timing, and the last issue we're going to talk about has to do with connection and how we embrace our partners. So first, let's take a look at how we may be walking incorrectly that may cause us to take shorter steps. The first group of issues we're going to talk about today have to do with how we use our leg. Specifically, how we map our thigh, how we use our knee, or don't use our knee, and how we use the ball of our foot. Or again, aren't we using the ball of our foot? Let's start with how we think of our leg. If we think of our leg as starting from here, then our step is going to be small. And that's because moving from this point here is moving from the bone. What we want to find is the joints, which actually starts way up here, and this gives you the full motion of your leg. So we always want to move from the joint to get that longer step, not from the bone. So there's moving to the bone, and here I'm just moving from the joint. The second issue has to do with how we use our knee. Some people mistake the phrase that you don't have a bent knee as meaning that you want a stiff knee. But that's not the case. As I've discussed before, whenever we walk, we start with not just a spiral rotation, but this bend in this knee. And with that bend, the hip dropped, and we have all this motion to move. If we walk stiff-legged, then we're not going, or stiff-kneed, we're not going to walk as far. Our steps are going to be smaller, because that limits how much our thigh is going to be able to move. The third issue is how we use the ball of the foot. That has to do with something called grounding, which would be another video that I'll be coming out with. But there's a difference between standing on top of the floor and really into the floor. So if you push your weight really down into the floor and down, you can feel the bottom of your foot spread out, specifically the ball of the foot just spreads out more. That contact is going to give you more surface area so that you can project yourself forward and take longer steps. If your weight is only, what I'd say, on top of the floor, then you're not going to have that leverage. You're going to take longer, you're going to be taking shorter steps than what you could do. So the fourth issue that can arise, that can cause us to take a shorter step, is how we time our movements. Let's say this is one beat, and this is another beat. So these are just moments in time, and it's the time in between the beats in which we're dancing. And we want as much time as we can use for our movements. And what we also have to do is our lead, we have to respond. So there's a lot of things going on. If our step ends up where my thumb is, well, then you're not losing that whole space in between the beats, and you're going to have a shorter step as well. Earlier, I've talked about how we have 4 different parts of the step. We have the extension, the weight transfer, the closing, and the pivot. We haven't still talked about the pivot yet, but we'll get to it, I promise. When we time our movements, we want our extension to be what's on the beat. We don't need our weight transfer to be on the beat. That will happen afterwards. And again, we'll talk a bit more about that later. So as you step, we want speed, 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 speed. If you're going backwards, then it is beat, 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 beat. So the last thing we'll talk about today is about intention. And that not only affects our intention with our partner, but also intention with the space and everyone around us. So there are two parts to this. Let's talk first about the space around us. If I'm inviting a step, and all I'm thinking about is that one step, then my intention really is just at the spot in front of me. I'm thinking, oh, I've got to get this one step here. That is going to be different than if I'm thinking, oh, I need to get to the other side of the room. If I'm thinking here, I'm going there. There's not going to be that much energy put into it. However, if I think, oh, this dance moves, I need to go over there so that whoever's behind me can come forward, then I'm going to move with more energy, and I'm going to take naturally longer steps. In tango, you also run into spaces where you're going around because, well, you can't go forward. But your intention still wants you to think about going not to a certain spot, but just like around you. This whole 360 degrees. And you'll have more energy in your movements, and that's going to be clearer to your partner as well. With women, particularly, there's another issue that pops up. And that is, if you're intending on going that way, you don't want to send your upper body away from your partner. Because if you do that, so my intention is from here, but really I'm thinking of my intention moving from the chest instead of from my hips, as if there's a string pulling the back here, the back of my spine, then this could happen, and you can see how my steps are smaller. The intention to go backwards, whenever you're going backwards, so this is especially for the lady, is from the hips. This part needs to come back. So if you want to think about, there's a tail over here that's being pulled, hey, think about it, whatever works for you. But this here, this needs the intention to go back. Even though your intention of your lower body is to go behind, to go backwards, your upper body still has to maintain its intention to go forward. It's somewhat like helping somebody move furniture. So let's say this weighs, I don't know, 70 pounds, and I need some help carrying it across the floor. So when I'm standing here and I was picking it up, my connection is forward with this piece of furniture. If my intention goes back, I lose grip on it, right? So I pick it up, keeping my forward intention, but my legs go back, my intention in my hips is going back, even though the intention in my upper body is forward to maintain my connection with this heavy chair. So as you go backwards, and you're remembering to pull from here, your tail if you will, your upper body maintains its forward connection. That's it for this week. Next week, we'll look at one of the important aspects of tango, and that is grounding. It can be a difficult thing to feel it kinesthetically, to feel it within your own body, so that you can use it to dance more gracefully. That's it. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.